Welcome back to the last week of the design lecture, and we're going to talk about today is generative design. And what I wanted to review a little bit is the process that we came through so far. So what happened is that we actually started with manual design. So in the very beginning, as you remember, you actually were 100% in control of everything. So you actually took Illustrator and you manipulated every last piece of the graphic that you were doing. So this is really, you were 100% in control, there's no automation, it's just you doing it. Then we had a second step where we actually went to templates. And here you no longer actually are 100% in control. What you do is actually create a framework or a template that can still be customized, and other people start using that. So in that sense, you are not completely in control anymore because there's other people actually using it. And what we do now is that we go even a step further. That is where you surrender complete control. Like you don't actually put any graphics on the screen anymore, and you have no direct control over it. Instead, what we do is that we actually let the computer do all the work. And in a way, this is a very fashionable way, or a very complicated way of expressing randomness. No, what you do is you replace creativity with randomness. So of course, you sort of like generate some sort of algorithm that sort of produces certain graphics. But of course, if it would be completely regular, it might get very boring. So you actually throw in, every once in a while some random numbers to vary certain things. And that then looks almost like creativity. But really it isn't, because at the end of the day, it's just a bit of randomness. And we have to be careful not to forget that although we can do certain things with code that are difficult to do manually, it is not impossible. If you had 1,000 years and 1,000 Chinese monkeys, you could actually, produce all of these things manually if you wanted. It just takes an enormous amount of time. So very often when we look at these generative art or design installations or posters or so forth, we're always very much amazed about the complexity of it. And yes, if you were to sit down to draw every single one of them, it'll be, very intense, but it's not really necessary. So in that sense, there are two people where we have to admire for that. The one is Roy Lichtenstein, who actually really drew every dot in his images. He actually, he drew them. Or when we look at the work of Escher, he drew them. He drew them all. So in that sense, these days we're very in a very luxurious situation that we can actually automate quite a few of those things. But still, it is the real challenge I see is being able to do something with code that is not possible by just repetition or effort. If you can show something in the process that it just fundamentally could have not been done any other way but through code. So I'm going to show you some examples of it. And I'm going to focus predominantly, I've got two books in my room, one from John Maeder and the other one from some German authors. And I made these available to you on Learn, so you can have a look at that. But of course, if you go into the processing community, there's so many of these examples of just cool stuff. And what I'm going to focus about is, because we are doing a lot here with typography, is typography, right? So if we take this example, you could build this in Illustrator. It's not a big deal, right? Maybe it's even quicker, not sure. But of course, if you just increase now the level of complexity, it means like you got more water coming out of it, and you got a real big ocean under it, where you have like millions of letters. Of course, then it's much, much easier to do it by code. But of course, again, it's just a matter of effort. So, with a lot of copy and paste and some random, you can also get that with Illustrator, if you wanted to. Here's another example where you actually take an image as a starting point, and you take the pixel and you replace the pixel with something else. In this case, it is letters, and letters with a certain color. Of course, the whole ASCII art is based on this, right? And this can be very successful. But what I'm really much more fascinated about is when these things become beautiful and astonishing by themselves. So here's some work of John Maeda. And it is not necessarily difficult to code, but overall this thing has a certain aesthetic to it, which is just beautiful. Or take this example. This is actually very simple. It's just, changing the size and repeating the same symbol. It's very simple, right? But overall, it gives a very nice, graphic. Here we have another one, which is, of course, advertisement for Absolute Vodka. Yeah. Right. So you've all done processing so far, and since we've been over the last 7 weeks been doing very much design work, which was very goal-oriented, the last week will be a bit more explorative. So what I would like you to do is, and that's why this presentation is also so extremely short, is there's not much to say about it, is I want you to use processing to do a poster which makes me go, wow. That's all. And ideally, I would like them to be of such a good quality that it's worthwhile printing them out and having them attached to the walls of our corridor. They should be that beautiful. And there are very few constraints here, other than, of course, the normal ones like don't copy anybody's work. Of course, the processing community has produced many, many examples. And if you just take an example and modify it a little bit, yeah, well, so what? So in that sense, what I would like you to do is to do a design process. That means you first have an idea about what is that you want to do. Maybe you make some sketches, some initial tryouts, then you work your way to final implementation, right? I want to see the whole process that you go through, and then, of course, in the end, final poster. Let's shoot for A0. You don't have to print it this time by yourself. Just make it as electronic version. Just make it as a PDF. And then if they're particularly beautiful, we'll then have them printed. Right? So this whole thing starts with an idea that you need. So if I were you, I would start with paper and a pencil and start making ideas about what it is that you want to do. Right? Questions?
When I initially saw the assignment on Learn, I didn't focus so much on the graphic aspect of it, but more on the fact that it was using processing, which would allow for interactivity and things like that. And so since it's a poster, a static dead, images, so I set on it being something that's static and not something that could be interactive.
That's a tricky one. I've been struggling with that question for a long time. And the thing is, something that you can do with code that you cannot do in print is indeed interactivity and time. And this is something that print does not allow for. It's like you print it and there it is, and that's all there is to it. So certainly there's an advantage of processing that you can do these things. But on the other hand, in the same way that I sometimes think photos are much nicer than videos, sometimes just capturing the moment and admiring it is much nicer than actually seeing a movie around it. So I take more photographs than videos of places and people. Really. Not sure how it is for you, but I think there's something about the moment. So yeah, it has been done. Of course, processing has a lot of interactive components as well to it. But I think just getting a snapshot might be quite nice.
I think, like art in general, even 2D static form can be interactive. So it's definitely compels us to explore that. Something like a children's book, you actually have to, you have to read it. It doesn't just create information. Instruction, you get to choose where you look at what time.
Yeah, sure. I mean, if a person standing in front of such a poster, there's maybe a certain form of interactivity. I mean, the communication is probably still pretty much one way, since the poster cannot react to anything. But yeah, I mean, I see absolutely the point about why interactivity can be very appealing in this point of view to some degree, and then becomes so much more. Yeah, but and again, also my experience is where having a poster and sticking it somewhere lasts longer. Okay. Okay, so wow, super short presentation, isn't it? One more thing. Next week is your 3-week project. So we had a little bit of talk about this, and we came to certain decisions, and I would like to update you on this. One is that it's going to be a group project, and it's going to be a group project of 4 students together, which in this case is all of you. The learning goal of this 3-week project is the process, doing the process, and also this includes teamwork, how to work in a multidisciplinary team on a project. That is the main learning goal. And as for the topics, we came up with 3 ideas, and the idea is that you have to all agree on one of them. I think Mark already yesterday, or on Friday, talked about the merino sheep one, and I've got a video for this, and it's going to come after this, so we've got an idea about that one. And I'm quickly going to talk about the other 2 options. HITLab information system. So this is kind of like your archetypical GUI software development problem. You've got an organization that has information, and it's not untypical. It's just us. It means everybody has it. Like we've got 4 or 5 different systems in our lab to keep track of people. It's quite amazing. We're pretty small. We already have that many. If you add the ones that the university has on top of that, it becomes almost a joke. So in any case, what at least we want to do is that, at least within the HIT lab, we want to consolidate into just one system that we all use and that we all share. And this is very trivial information, like contact information, starting date, end date. Is it a student? If so, student number, image, all this kind of trivial information, as it may seem. So it's not particularly complicated. However, it has some things to it, of course, that multiple people will actually edit it. I need access to it. I need to maintain it. And we have also different type of connectivities to other systems. And to keep things simple, we want to use FileMaker for this. So FileMaker is a database application that has a very nice, very straightforward GUI builder where you don't need barely any code to do anything at all. So from a technology point of view, this is very, very easy. It's kind of like your stereotypical thing where you actually have to go to the users and ask them, so what do you do? How do you do it? What kind of things is that you do? And you go essentially around the different users, compile it, make one system out of it, design the interface. And the implementation due to FileMaker is just very swift. The third one is what I brought here. And this is the nice aspect about this one is that it brings together software and hardware. So you've been working already with Arduino boards now, and this project sort of like brings it together. So the idea is that these guys here, we want to have a receptionist. So Kate is not here all the time, and we want to have just a very simple receptionist that you can come up to and talk to. Like, for example, you could ask the question, where's Mark? A question that in this laboratory is very valid. So for this guy needs to have certain functions. So, for example, it can move its arms, and it can go up and down. It can move its head. And, of course, you can put in a camera and a speaker. That should be possible. So we tried that once, and this is how far we got. So it has a camera, a USB camera inside. It has the arms, which can be attached. So there are servos in here. You hear that, right? So it can go. And the one that broke it was actually the hip joint, because there was a certain mechanism, and that broke, and then the whole thing became abandoned. So there's a motor in here, very much, should I say, MacGyvered. So this essentially, the idea was like to do it one dirty, so something like quick and dirty, and just make it happen, see how everything fits, and then do it a second time beautifully. And then, of course, you have the Arduino, which connects to all of this and then controls all of this. This is a small version of the Arduino. And then all of this can actually go into a platform so that some of the components can actually be hidden below it. So, some aspects can go actually below, and then, you don't necessarily see them. So this guy goes on here. And there you go. So we have got all the components together, like the camera, the microphone, the speaker. The speaker is here. Everything that's necessary to make it. And we have, should I call this a paper prototype? I'm not sure. A very early implementation of this. But of course it failed, and the idea now is to make it much better, and also to make it interactive, so get the software running behind it, so you can actually go up and talk to it. And it can be very simple. It can just be, the only thing it does is tell you if a certain person is in or not, or it's very simple dialogues. It can be something very specific, and that, of course, that makes it also manageable, particularly from the dialogue management point of view, because if you've got an open dialogue system, you can't script everything. You cannot script all the possible answers and all the things. It just doesn't work. So the more focus you give it, the better it is. So if you could just ask, what is the temperature? If you can just ask one or two things, but that are still somewhat useful, then that's a winner. And of course, then you can make some jokes with it and some casual things around it. Like, for example, if you ask the same question 3 times, it would at some point say, hey, do you listen to me? You can make a lot of things then in there that it's a little bit playful. But again, limiting down the focus makes it possible to manage it all, because the AI behind it is not necessarily strong. The alternative to that would be to make it, to use chatbot technology. So as you know, there are some chatbots on the web. Have you ever encountered them? So essentially, you type something in, it replies back to you. And they got pretty good at it. And so essentially, we can tap into that, right? So we can just, take the input from the speech recognizer, pop it off to a chatbot, get the reply back, make it text-to-speech, and off you go, right? So that way, you fake AI, essentially. It looks like it's smart, but really it isn't, in a way. But it still can be quite engaging. So that's this one.
How good is generic like audio to text converters?
You mean speech recognition or speech synthesis?
Speech recognition.
Yeah, tricky. Well, there are a lot of factors that come into play. For example, in this particular instance, if the microphone would be in here and this thing moves, the noise of the motors will heavily disturb the recognition. So if you, like me, have the microphone up here, there's very little other noise, and maybe even I have a constrained vocabulary, or it is trained to my voice, you can get pretty far. Certainly not 100%, but you can get reasonably far. Like you would go somewhere to 90%. And this is where what I was trying to point towards you. Speech recognition works, reasonably well, but not perfectly. Because it doesn't, I still have to go back and I still have to check. That is the annoying part. If it wouldn't, so having it working 70 to 80% correct, it's the worst thing, because it's almost there, but it doesn't work. Very frustrating. But of course, it cannot be expected of you that you come up with a complete new speech recognizer. That's not to be expected. So what you would use probably is one of the existing ones, for example, like Swings. It's an open source speech recognizer that you can just download as open source and you can just run it. So same with speech synthesis there is Festival. It's just an open source one, so you can just give it a string and it speaks it. The really tricky part is what happens in between those two, because then you talk essentially about dialogue management. Such basic ideas that, for example, what do you do if suddenly there's a pause? And how much time do you let pass before you start talking yourself?
Yeah, that's good.
Huh? I once. No, I saw once a very nice installation, and the thing was that the way it was exactly like a human relationship. It's like if I would get angry at it, it would get submissive. But if I got submissive, it got angry. So we were never really able to come to sort of like a level where we would like both be happy. Either one of us would be yelling, right? Well, you can set it up that way, right? So you can give this thing a personality. So for example, if it is interrupting people, like listen to me, or now I'm talking, you can do that. Or you can make it very shy if you want to, in terms of that it actually doesn't look in the eye of the person. It always looks away because it's a bit shy. You know how you can tell an introvert versus an extrovert Finnish person? The extrovert Finnish person stares at your feet. So there's a lot of things to play with this, and it has a lot of different aspects in terms of hardware, software, Arduino, and human interface technology. So and it's also terribly cute. Having Lego, it's just appealing. So that's the thing. Actually, again, you can play with this. So if you see this, people will be like, "Oh, cute! How cute!" And it comes on. And then, give it a rough voice, and let it be very adult and very maybe even swearing a little bit, then you got something, Or if you give it a Hello Kitty, this is a guy now, give it a Hello Kitty voice. Right? So there's a lot of things that you can play with, essentially. Huh?
When do we decide on what topic we want to do?
Well, you're going to start on Monday, so you better do it this week. So, I promised Mark I would show you this video. Does it play automatically? So, this is the, apparently there's a developer already that does this. And it's a kind of like an info kiosk. So if you are in a shop and it's selling this product, merino wool, people can just walk up to it and get different type of informations. That was plural, huh? No. So the only interesting thing here is that it also has an AR component that comes later as the last tab. So essentially here the focus would be, again, the GUI development. So here's an existing prototype. Take it, test it, make it better. Right? And of course, there are some extensions, like I think they were at some point thinking about a barcode scanner, so that you can actually, scan in the barcode of a product and then get information about it with the camera of the iPad. So this is the one where they've got now an AR thing. So and right now it's not a sheep. I think they just use the default animation, which is some sort of superhero. Woolman. I don't know. Yeah. Yep. Okay. Good. Any questions about the 3-week project?
So Mark talked to you about us coming up with our own.
He mentioned it. It's a difficult one. On the plus side, if you should all agree on one project and you're all happy with it and you are actually the one proposing it, it might give you a motivation boost because you are more in control of it. That's positive. On the negative side is in all the projects that I just proposed have a benefit for the laboratory. So the lab essentially gains something out of you working on it. It is beneficial to the lab as a whole. If you would propose your own project, which is also beneficial to the lab, then we have a win-win situation.
That was something we were looking at doing. One of the benefits, yeah, we were looking to benefit both us and the labs. And whatever we choose, that's what we were trying to achieve. We wanted to basically have like a showcase of like this is how far we've come as the master's students. So this is something that we can show of what we've learnt and we've applied it, and this is the outcome.
Well, a portfolio, so to speak, is
I think it's more like an application, but I think like one of the main things is that in terms of the design process, all of the projects are mostly designed, and all we kind of have to do is just refine the details. So what I think we want to do is actually do the design process from start, the life cycle of software development, where we actually look at what people want, what the users want, and design the application around that, not just the design of the user interface around existing.
in that respect, the HITLab information system might actually be quite good because this doesn't exist at all.
Is there any more specification around that?
Well, the first step, now you're asking for the specification, the first step would be that you go to the people and interview them. And the people who are currently involved in keeping track of people is Katie, Ken, Mark, and me. And we all have different views on what we need this thing to do. We all have different expectations on it. But right now, we all are islands. We all have our own Excel spreadsheets and our own kind of things, which is not a very smart way of doing it.
So what do you want to see if we do intend to develop a project proposal? Like, I mean, you obviously want to see more than just the title of what it's called, I presume.
Do you all feel that way?
Feel what way?
That you want to define the project yourself?
I'm quite compelled to do that. Especially maybe if we use the vision space or something like that, considering it's like kind of see it as the flagship tool for the HITLab, but it seems a bit underutilized perhaps.
Well, see, the reason why some of these projects that I've been pitching to you might look a little bit trivial is that I don't want you to get lost on the implementation side. Implementation can take an enormous amount of time. And all of these things essentially are done on a level where technology is readily available. Nothing really tricky about it, because it shouldn't be. Again, the trick is to go through the design process. If you now would essentially go to the vision space and you do something there, then you might end up being so entangled in actually getting it working at all that it wouldn't actually be,
feasible.
This technology focus will be very strong. So that's a tricky one. And the other thing is that ideally, the project here should be not just, we're going to build something really cool. There should be a problem. There should be some users who have a need. And then you essentially work with getting this done. So I'm not...
If our project meets those requirements, as you just outlined.
Yeah. So I would think that. So I would say if you make a proposal that A, it's beneficial to the lab, so it has a contribution to the lab. B, it's not so technology focused so that you actually don't waste all of your time just getting it done. The main focus again is on going through the process so that you have a real user, a real problem. You talk to them, you do the conceptual phase, you do several different iterations with the software, and in the end you have got a working prototype. That's fine.
The legal one doesn't work, isn't the same kind of process though, is it? I mean, you don't really have a user so much that would be going and asking for, would you?
Well, the idea would be to have a robo-receptionist.
Right.
So-
Okay, so that's the problem, effectively.
So the problem is, I'm not sure if you've noticed, but there's the sign up there. When Katie's not there, it's like, call this number. So if you've just got this guy there standing, hey, call this number, the telephone's over there.
Need a significant amount of computer vision, I'd imagine.
Or you can just throw in a distance sensor or motion detection. There's all kind of things you can do. So let's make it formal. If you want to make a proposal, then maybe please put it in a Thursday, and then we discuss it, so we can make a decision by Friday.
Oh yeah, for the typography one, just back to that.
Mhm.
When did you want that in by?
Well, the idea is since next week you're going to start working on the project, it should be done by Friday.
Yeah. It's just that these proposals are also due on the same day, and so I haven't really received feedback. It's just myself really, but I haven't really received feedback yet, and so I would like some time to work on that.
Yeah, I know. Again, it is perfectly clear that for this task you have very limited time. That's obvious. But even simple things can be very beautiful. Look at this example of this one. It's very simple. I think it would take you 10 minutes to implement it.
Oh, I don't mind the task. I'm happy with the tasks. It's just that waiting for feedback. Like,
Well, in your particular task, the problem with you is that you are bound to a company. And that is something that is kind of holding it back. You're already making some considerable progress in talking with Stephen. So there is some progress there, but of course it's not exactly ready yet. And with your particular case, your proposal looks already pretty good. So in that sense, I'm not so terribly worried about it.
I told him.
Okay.
have you reviewed mine at all to see what I'm sort of trying to achieve? Or if you,
It's in the hands of Mark.
right.
I cannot say much about it simply because it is Mark and Black Bay, and you have to come to some sort of agreement.
Yeah, no, that's cool. I just thought you might have read it just to give feedback at all or something.
Okay? Very well then. Then I see you on Friday.